Hello, this is your virtual life coach, Michael Lewis. So much of the heartache and trauma in this world has as its root people simply not being who they are. Take Hitler. Hitler wanted to be a painter. He was an artist, but they didn't let him into the art school in Vienna. He could do buildings fine. He could do landscapes fine. He just had this little thing about people. Somehow he couldn't get people right. So just imagine, who knows, had they let him into the art school and fixed his problem with people, whatever it was, possibly he would have become a famous, happy artist. There would have been no World War II. And we'd be at cocktail parties saying, oh, yes, I've got an actual original Hitler hanging in my living room. You never know. Now, every decision that you make is a decision on who you are, believe it or not. Every decision that you've made has to do with a to be or not to be, an existence versus a no existence. Am I going to be a resident of New York City, or am I going to be a resident of Oregon? Am I going to be this person's wife, or am I not going to be this person's wife? Am I going to be a mac and cheese eater for dinner this evening, or am I going to be a pizza eater this evening? Somehow, if you want to get something done, and if you want to achieve a goal, you have to make up your mind who you are first. It's very hard to become a ballerina if you don't think you're a ballerina and don't believe you could be a ballerina. You can't be a successful person unless you get the idea and decide to be a successful person. You won't be lucky in love unless you decide that you can be and that you deserve to be, and therefore you should be lucky in love. So no matter what you want and no matter what you're doing, it all depends on you taking on some sort of you-ness before actually getting going on the thing in order to do it. And when we're talking about who you are, we're not talking about how tall you are or the color of your eyes or anything like this. We are talking about you. Now, you all know Dick Van Dyke. Everybody loves Dick Van Dyke, but you know, Dick Van Dyke wasn't always Dick Van Dyke as we know him. As a matter of fact, he was poverty-stricken, out of work. His wife had just had her second miscarriage. He was broke. He drove home on a rainy night and found that all of their belongings had been taken out and put on the curb because they were being evicted for, failure to pay the rent. He was ready to give up. He decided show business isn't for him. His wife said, no, this is who you are. See, she knew him better than he knew him. She said, something will turn up. That night, his agent calls him saying, there's a paid gig to open for a major guy in Las Vegas, like Frank Sinatra, and they want you. So she says, great. And he says, great. They drive out to Las Vegas, and the gig turns out to be bogus. It was a prank or something. And now all they've got between the two of them is $5. He says, I quit. I'm going to bed. Tomorrow morning, we're going back and I'm going to do something else. That's the end of me for show business. He wakes up the next morning and he smells bacon and eggs frying in the kitchen at the motel they're staying. He hears his wife whistling a happy tune. She had taken the $5, had gone downstairs, betted on blackjack, and came up winning $400. $400 in 1950 was enough to live on for 2 or 3 months. During those 2 or 3 months, he gets an actual paid gig. It's a huge hit, and away he goes. At any point, she could have said, okay, fine, I'm sick of being broke. I'm sick of the stupid dream that you've got of being in showbiz. That's not who you are. Go do something else. And if she had done so, there'd be no Dick Van Dyke. There'd be no Mary Tyler Moore. There'd be no Dick Van Dyke Show. And you'd watch Mary Poppins, and the part of Bart the chimney sweep would have been played by somebody else, like maybe Sean Connery or Peter O'Toole or whatever. But she saw who he was, and she didn't let him be something else. So there are some things that keep you from being who you are. Big one is indecision. Never be afraid to make a decision. Only be afraid not to make a decision. Anything is better than, I don't know, because just puts you on hold, sticks you in a thing called maybe, and makes you doubt who you are. You can't be a maybe. You have to be a this or a that. So make that decision and be that decision. Now, the handy thing about being is that it's an ability. Not very many people use this ability, but like if you have trouble understanding someone, don't try to figure them out. Just see if you can be them for a moment or two. I was handling a couple many years ago. He couldn't understand why she was so irked at him all the time, his girlfriend. And she just seemed plain irked, and he was taking it personally and so forth. And I said, just wait a minute, just be her. Just be here for a moment. And he goes, okay, no, don't act the part of her. Just get the idea of being her and seeing things the way she sees them through her experiences and through who she is and that sort of thing. And he sat there for a moment and he said, oh, wow, I can totally see this. You know, she just lost her dad, and she really wanted to name her baby that was coming after him, and she lost this, and she had this bad thing happen, and she hasn't been taking care of herself. No wonder she's irked all the time. Doesn't have anything to do with me. So he understood, and the way he understood was by being her. This is like not something new. It's just not something that people do like knowingly. You know, like if you've ever known somebody really, really well, you're really close to someone, you guys have got this snap, crackle, pop communication line with each other. You finish each other's sentences. You can almost predict what each other's going to be doing and so on. And it's because you're very good at being each other while still being you. You've probably experienced that one time or another. So next time you're in a mystery about someone or the way they're behaving or whatever, just causatively be them. Nobody has to find out. You can be quiet, but you can be anything you want while still being you. You know, just for fun, pick someone in your life who you'd like to know better and causatively just be that person while still being you. Get the sense of how they're seeing things because of everything that they've been through and everything that they are and so forth. And you'll understand them a little bit better. This is how to get along with people. The people that you admire are generally people who do this. They can actually be you, they can be others, and all like that. And if you get really good at causatively being many things and many people while still being yourself, you're going to find that you feel bigger, wiser, calmer, and more you. Now, the best thing about being you is to be you. The worst thing is not to be you. When you are not you, you're in some other identity. You are at your best, you are at your most able, and you're most potentially successful when you're you. Not when you're somebody that someone who's putting you down tells you you are. Now, how does a person stop being who they are? Well, there's lots of ways. You can tell me, like, you know, some kid joins a gang to be cool. Well, that's not really him, but he wants to belong to the gang. So that's what he does. You go to a party where everyone's phony and weird, so you become phony and weird. You know, got to get along with these people at the party, right? Or someone tells you, you're getting more and more like your Uncle Ned. What a jerk. We hate him. And so you find yourself kind of becoming a little bit more and more like your Uncle Ned. I was 19 years old. I was at my older brother's wedding. I was at the reception. I wasn't doing anything in particular. My Aunt Goody comes up to me and says, oh, I see you're You're scouting the place, looking for chicks. Cool. And, for several moments after that, I was like, am I here at this reception scouting chicks? Well, maybe I am. I don't know. Am I? So now here's one more way. Maybe you've lost someone, like maybe in the last 5 years or 10 years or something like that. You lost someone really major, someone who's way up there on the Mount Rushmore of your life. Doesn't have to be by death necessarily, could be by betrayal or departure or something like that. You just lost that person. That person is no longer there. Was there afterwards some wish to keep that person around through tokens, souvenirs, a lock of the hair, mannerisms that they had? Well, there it is. Some people take on the mannerisms, opinions, and sometimes even the physical appearance of the person they've lost. They can do this consciously or unconsciously, in an unconscious or conscious desire to somehow keep that person around. In a lesser way, I remember I found myself using some of my dear departed wife's favorite expressions at times. They're like little souvenirs to keep around. That's probably harmless compared to some people who completely make themselves over to actually become the departed person, taking on their habits, taking on their occupations, even their ailments and their aches and pains. It can get pretty impressive. Now, in some ways, it's a choice, and in some ways, it's not. You can choose to turn your back on tomorrow and live in yesterday, because that's where the person you lost is. They're in yesterday. Or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can close your eyes and see that departed person again in the past, or you can open your eyes and see all the wonderful things that they left for you. You can close your mind and feel like it's all over, or you can do what they'd want you to do, which is open your heart and carry on with your life as yourself. Grief is the toll that we pay for having loved someone. And someone once said that grief is love with no place to go. A lot of us have lived through that, and a lot of us will. And it's all part of being you. Some people live their whole lives, though, being someone else, something that's not them and not who they are. People like this are uncomfortable to be around, people who aren't really being themselves. They're uncomfortable to be around because there are two things. Thing number one is you can be yourself, and thing number two is you can let others be themselves as well. So to the degree that you can't be yourself, but have to be something else, is the degree to which you don't let other people be themselves, because identities are somehow scarce and valuable. That's why you feel uncomfortable around these people. They don't let you be who you are. And of course, they're not being themselves. So it's just odd, and you feel odd. If you can think of some people in your life who are uncomfortable for you to be around, yeah, that person. Now, would you say that they're truly being who they are? Or are they in some phony or artificial identity that isn't really them? Well, there you go. Now think of someone that you really like to be around, someone who's like really totally comfortable. You can be yourself around this person, quite literally. Are they being themselves? Of course they are. And because they're okay with being themselves, with being who they are, they're letting you be who you are. So it feels great, no pressure. Now, here's an example of letting someone or helping someone be who they are. When Thomas Edison was little, he brought home a sealed note from school, and he handed it to his mom. His mom unsealed it, read it, and burst into tears. She read it to him, And the letter said, your son is a genius. The school is too small for him, and he doesn't have the quality of teachers to teach him. Please teach him yourself. Okay. So 60 years later, Edison's an old man. He's going through his old things, and he runs across this folded paper, this old folded note that the school had him bring back home to his mom. And he opened it up and he read it for the first time. And what it actually said was, your son is mentally ill. We won't let him come to school anymore. That's what it actually said. Edison wrote in his diary that day, Thomas Edison was an addled child that by a hero mother became the genius of the century. His mom knew who he was, just like Mrs. Van Dyke knew who Dick Van Dyke was. How? By being a loving mom, at the same time being able to be her child. See? So remember, you can causatively and deliberately, temporarily and knowingly be whatever and whoever you want while still being you, just like Mrs. Edison, just like Mrs. Van Dyke. Every decision you make is really a decision to be something. So never be afraid to decide. Only be afraid of not deciding. And most importantly, if you're going to remember anything from this talk, most importantly is you are way better than any artificial or contrived or phony you could ever be. Period. Okay, so who the heck are you? Yes, it's what you suspected all along. It's you at your best and most able. That's who you really are. Imagine that for a moment. There you are. I see you. And that's all I have to say for now. So until next time, love each other, take your vitamins, observe posted speed limits, play nice, and never lose sight of who you are. Never, never, never lose sight of who you are. So long for now.